everybody. This is the Age of Transitions live stream, not the regular Age of Transitions podcast, but a live stream I'm doing via my Twitter account. That's right, I called it Twitter. So I'm a rebel like that. I call things as I see them. And usually the Age of Transitions podcast is live on the Ocelli Radio Network, ocelli.com, Friday nights, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. This week, my producer, Chuck Ocelli, he's not well, but he is getting better. Thank goodness. Chuck, we wish you well. I hope you're doing okay now. I know I have emailed him. I've been talking to him, but I mean, he's recovering. He was in the ER. So Chuck is doing that now. So we'll see. Check out this week. He should be doing shows at the Ocelli Effect shows on ocelli.com. But anyway, this is a live stream show. Something different. It's not the regular Friday show. I'm just going to live stream. I don't know if this is going to end up being a regular episode of the show. I might make it that. But if you don't know, my website is theageoftransitions.com. And I'll actually give a introduction to myself and who I am on this stream. I don't know if it's going to have a life beyond the live stream at all, but I do want to talk a bit about topics that are very important to me, which is the state of the alternative media and the recent allegations of Russian influence over large swaths of the alternative media. It's not just this Tenet media company, but it's bigger than that. It's a bigger story than that. If you're not aware, it certainly is. So I'm going to talk about that. If it weren't for my strong feelings and what I believe, I believe I have some useful insight, actually, to give on this topic. If I didn't think that, I wouldn't be doing this live stream right now. I would just wait till next Friday to do another podcast and just, go about business as usual. I miss weeks. Sometimes Chuck or I miss a week on Friday. It's always me. It's shows you how serious when Chuck isn't there. This week it's serious. So anyway, I am Aaron Franz. I have been in this scene, the alternative media, an extension of the truth movement, which no longer exists anymore, but it was called that at the time when I got into this. In 2008, I uploaded to Google Video the hour-long video that I made titled The Age of Transitions, which was, its focus was on transhumanism, hour-long video. And I just kind of put it on Google Video and just like, let's see how it does. It started getting a lot of views really quick. It went past 1 million views. I forget how much time it took, but it went past 1 million views. Then the Google counter started doing some weird things. It was hard to say eventually how many views. It's impossible to say how many views it ended up getting, but it was over 1 million pretty quick. And that doesn't seem like much by today's standard, but at the time it was significant. And also at the time, people were complaining a lot about the Google view counter being a little whacked out and you couldn't trust it. And it's true. It kind of is. It stopped working and stopped being reliable. So that's a funny little memory from years past. But 2008 video came out. Shortly after releasing the video, again, it was catching on popularity. I got contacted by Henrik Palmgren over at Red Ice Creations, which is an alternative media outlet based out of Sweden. He contacted me, I believe, through my MySpace profile. I think I had a MySpace profile at the time. I think that's how he found me, if my memory serves me. But anyway, he contacted me by email, I believe, or maybe a MySpace message. I think they had a MySpace page too. It's not exactly clear to the memory, but I know he got a hold of me. He said, "Hey, would you like to be interviewed on my show?" I said, "Yeah, okay, that's cool. I've never done this. Let's see what this is like." So I came on the show. He interviewed me about the Age of Transitions. We talked about transhumanism. that was that really. But I was ended up being interviewed on other shows, and the Age of Transitions kind of like made its rounds and had an impact. And it was one of those videos at the time. The videos that were like these documentary videos, they some of the biggest were like Zeitgeist, and my video was never as big as Zeitgeist was, but it was known and it had an impact and it did what it did. And yeah, Henrik's show was the first I ever went on. He ended up having me back, I think, 2 more times for a total of 3 appearances over the years. That was over a period of a few years. I was going on other shows. I started making my own site. Actually, I started working with a guy that goes by Particle Ion internet handle. Carlos, we had a project called Trans Alchemy. We kind of split up too. At one point, he and I covered the Singularity Summit in 2009 as a transhumanist live conference event. We got lots of interesting interviews. I still have the tapes of those interviews that I never released. That's a story in and of itself. But anyway, I've been doing this for a while, and I think it's significant to point out Red Ice Creations because at the time I was invited on there, it was a very fringe, alternative, interesting network that had a lot of pretty wackadoodle, fringy guests, myself included. But they would have all sorts of people that would talk about UFOs, channeling. The synchromysticism topic was big at the time, which is a pretty woo-woo, sort of spiritually oddball, again, very fringe topic. They were all over that kind of stuff. So it started out with that. It's like, man, these guys really will have anybody on, and they're really they're not scared to cover topics that others like. This is just, why are we talking to these guys? This is just BS. You know, a lot of researchers that are interested in any given conspiracy topic, you know, the JFK assassination or 9/11, what have you. A lot of people are serious researchers into those topics would be like, oh, this is a bunch of silly fringe nonsense that doesn't do any favors to the movement. That was Red Ice at the time. As I never had a problem with it at that time, and I was happy to go on there, and it was cool. But as time went on, Henrik and Red Ice started changing their opinions. They drifted slowly but surely in from being just a fringe sort of wackadoodle UFO heavy sort of site that had all sorts of guests like that to being a like a super right-wing ultra-nationalist website that also tiptoed slowly but surely, it doesn't happen overnight, they tiptoed to their way into topics such as white genocide. That does that, I don't know, I feel like these terms, they come and they go, that get these buzzwords that pop up in the alt media. Like there'll be a time where everybody's talking about one thing. It's like, ooh, white genocide. They got really big for a while. And I would say Red Ice was at the forefront of really like pushing that one hard. I forget what year exactly that was, but man, they were on that. They started getting all sorts of guests that were talking about what I think the mainstream refers to it as white replacement theory now. It's still a thing. It still gets referenced all the time, but these things are nebulous, and it's always the same topics that change enough to kind of keep you confused and disoriented enough. And yes, it's disorienting, this space, this alternative media space. And let's just be honest, Red Ice turned super racist and problematic and downright evil. I'll say it. I mean, it's clearly super racist, terrible. And it did it over time. And what I'm saying here is I've been around for a while to see that these changes occur. These changes occur, And it's hard to know what to make of them all the time. It's hard. And we, as conspiracy theorists, conspiracy minded folks, we always want to fall back on, okay, well, who's pushing this and why? What's the agenda? And I think that's fine. And I think there is a bit of that there are agendas here. And we'll get around to that. But when you start asking those questions, one of the difficulties that always pops up is that you have this go-to group of villains, this cast of characters that you build up through your narrative building, that you just go to. Or like, okay, we know that in this case, we could say, okay, we see that Red Ice has turned to evil. They've become super racist. They're talking about this white genocide nonsense. Who put them up to this and why? It's a legitimate, good question to ask. The easy answer is to go to, well, what's my Rolodex of evil villains say? George Soros, he probably did it. The World Economic Forum, okay, yeah, they're probably part of it. It's just the deep state. Although at the time, when this was happening, it was before all of those terms came into fashion. It was, I want to say, just before 2016, this all stuff kind of like really rolled up and rolled down, took shape. Another thing I like to point out on the Red Ice front is one of these patterns you'll notice with the sort of tiptoe drift into from being just fringe and being harmless to being racist, neo-Nazi style propaganda. What you'll see is that they'll do these postings on social media where usually they'll start talking about crime. They're like, okay, crime is a problem. We need to do something about all this crime. Where the police, they start buddying up to, they start doing sort of that like thin blue line kind of stuff. Or like, okay, what do you have? One of those blue flag stickers on your car? You drive around with one of those. They talk like that. They start going like maybe they'll overtly say, we support our police or something like that. They'll start, because they'll be so big on the crime issue, like crime terrible. We need a strong leader. We need something to do. What the hell? What's wrong with our system that it can't protect us from this menace? So it drifts into that we're in a scary, dangerous scenario where we need some tough the problem that is given is like, look, we don't have a strong leader that knows how to handle crime. That's a problem, right? So further on down the line, you get more, it goes beyond just, crime is a problem. Violence in the streets is a problem. Homelessness is a problem. Just general society's crumbling. It goes into more and more racist posts, which are in the same vein. They start cherry picking these stories where they'll show, basically they take stories to say, look, this black man raped a white woman. It's the kind of story that they post. They find every single news story that they can find like that, and they make a point like, look, this black man raped a white woman. What are we going to do about it? And they'll post those over and over and over and over, and that's all they post. Completely cherry-picked stuff. That's just obviously there. It's the most racist thing you could possibly do. There's so much violent crime going on everywhere. You could cherry pick stories about any given crime to suit whatever your narrative happens to be. And their narrative is what? White genocide, white replacement. So the whole method is the narrative is what's important. That's one of the problems in this. But anyway, that's what happened with Red Ice. They're not the only ones. This became a big trend. I started speaking out about this when I saw them do this. I'm like, what the hell is this? I started denouncing it and saying, no, this is ridiculous. A couple other people, there was a real rift that this caused. A lot of the more like kind of kooky, synchromistic types just dropped out of the scene completely. Like, I don't know what the hell happened to Red Ice, but I'm out of here. Which, good on them. They're probably the smart ones, the ones that just up and left. Now, there are a couple of synchro mystics that stuck around and kind of just, they integrated this whole weird racist and it gets nuanced because different people will try to hide all this like they're not racist in different ways. And if not just all outright racist, it's super divisive and decidedly right-wing, feeding in to the narratives of what? Actually, the Republican Party in the United States. That was the trend that happened during the 2016 U.S. presidential election, was the marriage of the conspiracy, truth movement, alternative media sphere. That world was married to the Republican Party via the 2016 Donald Trump presidential campaign. Yeah, I'm in here. Okay, I'll be there. There's more important things to do than be here, but believe me. But I'm gonna stick this out. If anybody's actually listening to this, do feel free to join the chat. This is going out through the @Uncle Podcasts, YouTube, Twitch, and then it's on my Twitter, which is Franz Simulation. It's going out on all those things. Let me pull up the chat so I can see it well. If anybody's there, chat, and I will speak with you. And I can pull up the chat graphic too so that everybody else watching will see the chat no matter what platform you happen to be watching this on. But whatever. 2016, there was a marriage. It was so romantic. It was a beautiful thing. I wept. Oh, man. Brought a tear to my eye. The marriage of the alternative truth movement world, all things conspiracy, with the MAGA Donald Trump presidential campaign. The Republican candidate for president. This was the horse that the alternative free-thinking crowd hitched their wagon to. That alone should be shameful. That should have shamed everybody and people who claim to be out there investigating the truth, trying to find what's actually going on in the world, trying to find answers to the hard questions, speaking truth to power. All of that sort of idea, that mission, if you have that as your mission, how can you really realistically just glom onto a candidate for president? That alone. I'm not even going to talk about Trump specifically, which he, of all people, to say a presidential campaign candidate, a Republican one, first of all, is ridiculous, any of them. But this guy, this is the guy you're going with? So when that all broke out in 2016, what I noticed happening then was this rift happening in the alternative sphere. A rift occurred where people, basically how it went was, hey, look, are you on board with the Trump train? If so, please do get on board. And people were being highly encouraged to do so in oh so many ways, not just one way that people were being encouraged to do it. But that was where the wind was blowing. That's the direction the wind was blowing. Obviously, it was obvious to anybody doing this that was going on. So a line was drawn in the sand. It's like, are you with us, the MAGA crowd? Are you coming along on this ride? Which was an extension of previous things like the Ron Paul campaign and all these other things. And Alex Jones was there cheerleading all this stuff, as he does. What a trustworthy guy, him. And honestly, it seemed as though most people just went along with this and be like, oh, you know what? This is what we're into now. This is where we're going. Okay. Yeah. Trump. Yeah. He's He is the answer to the corruption in the system. Drain the swamp. He's a political outsider. He's a good businessman, so he'll run the country as a business. All of the stupid campaigning silliness that Trump was doing, we, free thinkers, alternative investigators into truth, just believe this stuff. Again, should be shameful. People should be ashamed of themselves for all this. I never went along with this, okay? And I have to say I am upset. I have been upset ever since that this whole thing, this MAGA thing, this right-wing marriage of the alternative with the mainstream Republican Party into this one giant new alt-right, America first, liberty, freedom. It goes by many different stupid names. It's all one thing. It's all one giant thing that subsumed so many people. And I have been upset this whole time that this distraction has been something that we all have to deal with now. It's an utter distraction from anything even remotely resembling truth. There's nothing true there to be found other than when you pull it apart and you see that it's threadbare and there's nothing to it. It's like, what the hell? How did this work? The question that somebody still has a mind that works asks is, what is this? How did it get here? And why does it persist? How do people keep getting fooled by this? It's the question. Remarkable how it works. It's really, it's but I think the main mechanism by which all of this has worked, the MAGA thing, and I'm going to talk about the Russian influence side to this soon. I'm working my way up to that. But I think what deserves to be noted is the way that this whole thing has worked, the way that any useful aspect of the truth movement, the alternative media, the truth movement's dead now. Doesn't exist anymore. It had its problems since before I even got involved in this. There have been problems, and where the MAGA thing kind of came in, that didn't come out of just nowhere in 2016. That had been building, and there's lots of people to call out decades back. So it's not like it came out of nowhere. It really didn't. But the things that were built upon are all of the worst things, all of the traps that were always there if you're conspiracy theorizing, trying to find the truth. There's always been traps. Always. And that's like number one. That's conspiracy 101 is like, trust no one, right? Well, I guess we can trust old Donnie boy. He'd never steer you wrong. He's a real trustworthy guy. Laughable. But this is what we went with. Not we, not me, but you. Did you go along with this? Ask yourself, are you one of the people that went along with this? Are you one of the people that continues to go along with this? And if so, I'm not judging you. I'm going to try not to be judgmental against people who got wrapped up in this, because right now I'm going to explain how that happens. I completely get it. It's part of really a science project that we are the victims of. Human nature, part of human nature is that we are not infallible creatures. We do make mistakes. We have many weaknesses individually, and just as a species, we have just inherent, not flaws, but we have different things that can be exploited in us. Many different things that can be exploited in us. And technology, so much of it has been crafted to take advantage of our biology, of a lot of biological prejudices and a lot of our inherent biological weaknesses. But not just biology, there's also emotional aspects, there's psychological aspects, and yes, I think one could argue spiritual aspects to all this too, that technology is used as a weapon against us because we are fragile creatures, literally and figuratively. Take your body, jump off, I don't know, just a 12-foot wall, land onto a hard surface from 12 feet. You're probably going to get hurt pretty bad. When you think about it, if you kind of step back and you think about it, it's like, man, that's all it takes for the human body really to get damaged. Yes, it doesn't take a lot. But also, our emotions are fragile. Our psyches are fragile. They can be exploited. They can be attacked. They can be, they can be exploited in so many ways. And they are equally, if not more, fragile. We have subconscious, unconscious desires. We are complex organisms. Technology is nowhere near as complex as us. However, when it is crafted in such a way as to exploit our the multifaceted aspects of us and our being, which branch out in so many different directions, you get infinite complexity instantaneously. However, we can be exploited by simple machines, and we are constantly, every day, on social media. This social media was crafted to take advantage of us, with the dopamine hits on the like button, and I mean, there's so many different things going on. Another thing is it's a surveillance tool for all of us, not just internet as a whole, but definitely these damn social media sites. I know I'm on social media now, and in so doing, I am part of the problem. Yes. A lot of times I think about just leaving this whole thing, and I think that I'm an idiot that I haven't before now, but I'm still here for what it's worth. But the reason and way that so many people drifted into the MAGA sphere is quite simple. It's not complicated at all. They did it because, once again, that's the direction the wind was blowing in the movement, in that peer group, within the clique that is the alternative media. There are cliques within the clique, of course, but you get in where you fit in. And if you make the choice to start crafting material that toes the line of what was in 2016, it's like, oh, Donald Trump is the anti-establishment guy, that if we get him voted in, we're going to drain the swamp, we're going to restore America, America will be great again. And, if you're a little further on the conspiracy end of things, he's going to do stuff like bring the truth out about what happened on 9/11. He's going to bring out the truth about JFK. By the way, if you believed that ever, and you go back and look and see what he actually did, none of these things actually happened. In fact, he went out of his way to keep the JFK files from being released, which they were going to be released just, I forget what it was that had them coming out. Chuck is always talking about this, but he went out of his way to stop them from being released. JFK documents about the assassination. That's just one tiny thing that just proves that all of that was utter BS. He was never about finding the truth for any given conspiracy subject. He was never going to liberate the people, the downtrodden, which he tries people. One of the stupid little tools that the MAGA movement uses is when they come after him, they're actually coming after you. And by you, it means, you living on $100 a week, living in, whatever horrible poverty level living standard you have. You're supposed to relate to this guy who's the president, says he's a billionaire, and that's debatable. But anyway, he's got plenty of money. He's got plenty of power. He's in charge. He's like you. Unbelievable. It's just, this has continued to be mind-blowing to me. But anyway, the way that alternative media content creators, radio hosts, podcast hosts, video producers, people with YouTube channels, people with Twitter accounts, people have made videos, everybody scattered throughout the movement. The way that they were sucked up by this was that it was just such an ecosystem of media that if you joined in, you were signal boosted by everybody else putting this stuff out. So if you would toe the line, the party line, the Republican Party line, of any single talking point to do with the Trump campaign, you were brought into the fold, you were retweeted, you were befriended by everybody else within this group, which got bigger and bigger and bigger all the time. This is not even to mention the money that was offered to people that would start promising pro-Trump messaging, which this did happen. But more than just the money, it was about the attention and the clicks. And along with all of this, it's not just about promoting Donald Trump, but it's like this ethos that happened of, look, we're going to really stick it to the libs. We're going to own the libs by pointing out how their progressive values are so stupid. And we're going to really, zing them and show them who's right. So the model went from, if it was ever this in the first place, investigating, reading books about topics that you think are interesting, alternative topics that you want to learn more about. So you read deeply into them, doing research by reading primary sources, by reading books written by people who would be the enemy, right? People who were within the establishment, books that they wrote, even white papers on topics that are interesting to you. This is the kind of stuff that I did so that you understand about the topic that you want to learn about, and then you present information in that way. If the movement was ever about that, that's questionable to even begin with, but was more so until this all happened, it definitely was not about that anymore. It was about how social media works. How does social media work? It works on likes. It works on subscriptions. It works on followers. It works on attention. The attention economy that was built up out of social media has everything to do, its trappings, its workings, the way it operates has everything to do with the ascendancy of Donald Trump and the MAGA movement. It's how he got elected, by exploiting the internet, online social media ecosystem, knowing how to do that. He did have a whole apparatus that understood that, and the old guard Hillary Clinton campaign, they were living in the past. They had some goofy, whenever they tried to keep up, they had some super lame thing that nobody was ever going to do, text "I'm with her" to 452-678 or something, and that's how you support Hillary. There's something so stupid like that. So they were behind the ball for sure, the Democrats. But Trump was on top of it, and everybody involved with him. It was a giant apparatus. It wasn't just him that understood this. Roger Stone and company, they knew what they were doing, and they knew they targeted alternative media, and they got numbers on listeners and on views and who was getting attention. And they went and they found people that were getting attention, and they recruited them. Like, hey, why don't you join us? And it wasn't always overt recruiting too. Some people just by following the dictates again of social media is how do I get attention? Oh, I know, by putting out super controversial, like the most controversial, abrasive material you can think of. You just put out videos that you know people are going to get pissed off about, that are against you, the libs. You own the libs. So in so doing, it's this provocative media. When you make provocative shock value media, it was this new shock value style media that it works in that you know you're going to get attention because you know you're putting out shocking, confrontational videos, media. Confrontation for its own sake. That's it. Not, and you're putting it out and you're pretending all the while that you have this this goal, this political goal. You have some sort of ethical, patriotic mission that's always nebulous. It's always like, we the patriots are going to take back the country. Something super vague like that doesn't actually mean anything, like we the patriots have to take back the country from the deep state. Nothing in that phrase means anything. It's a 1984 Big Brother style phrase that doesn't mean anything, which is appropriate because we've been exploited by social media, by technology. And this whole group will go on and on about how Silicon Valley is terrible. They're a bunch of liberals. We got to stop them. Google's awful, blah, 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 blah. But also part of this is, you take away one of these creators' YouTube channels. You want to see crying. I've never seen crying worse than when a YouTube channel is shut down of one of these folks. God, they whine about it over and over. The same people that go like, the Silicon Valley establishment's so bad, Google's so bad. It's like, look, if you really believe that, why do you even have a YouTube account? Why don't you put your money where your mouth is and say like, yeah, this is bad, I'm not going to do it. And you have your other alternative media sites like the Rumbles and the D Lives and all this, like, this is our answer, blah, 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 blah. Like, we do that. Blah. But still to this day, and with this Russian thing, there's been new people losing their YouTube channels and losing it over it. And anytime somebody pulls out, I'm just like, get over it. I hate it. I shut down my YouTube channel, which had a lot of subscribers on it. It was like this ADD TV channel I set up a long time ago. I built it up with different videos. I started putting my age of transition stuff on there. And then I got mad at Google because they were making money off of advertisements that were playing on the age of transitions. I never made money on the age of transitions. All I ever did was give it out for free as a DVD. I had a book, I still do, Revolve Man's Scientific Rise to Godhood. And what I would do is I would send it out to people. I'd mail it personally, and I'd burn a copy of The Age of Transitions on DVD. I'd put that in with the book as a free gift. That's how I gave out The Age of Transitions. I never received any money for it, much to the chagrin of some other people who wanted to sell it on their site, who will remain nameless now, but they know who they are, and I could really stick it to them if I want, but that's not the point of this right now. But other people wanted to make money off my video. I didn't let them. I never made money off it either. I gave it as a free gift. It was free online. I always said that from the start. I actually stick to my word. It's unusual. It's unusual to actually care, to go out of your way, to ethically think about like, okay, what am I going to do? Like, what's the right thing to do? What am I going to say? And when I say it, am I actually going to stick to my word? What's actually right? That's not what's done in this movement. It hasn't really ever been, but certainly not now. What was being done was the attention economy. It's like, okay, what can I do to get attention to me? And honestly, all it takes is like for somebody to come in, they make some abrasive video. I know that Mark Dice got his start doing this. He would, I remember his first couple of videos that were loaded to YouTube, and then he was featured on Alex Jones' show. I remember him going to UCLA campus with a megaphone, yelling about, it was 9/11 truth or something that was in vogue at the time, which has fallen out of favor now. But who cares? Whatever whatever the truth du jour is all that matters. But anyway, he's acting a fool, acting stupid, and really doing a disservice to what might have been even a useful topic, which I don't remember what it was at the time. He called himself John Connor. He wore sunglasses. He was protecting his identity at the time. And he was super confrontational, shock jockey. It's shock jock material for this audience, this alternative audience. You just pay lip service to whatever, again, the truth du jour topic is. And guess what? Alex Jones invites you on your show, on his show. Signal boosting. Your signal is boosted. You now have attention. That's what the Alex Jones show and others like it exist to do, to build others up and bring them in. And look at Mark Dice today. What's he doing? He's like the alternative Bill O'Reilly. But more racist and dumber and more annoying somehow. He's found a way to do all those things, which is quite a feat, Mark. By the way, Mark Dice is a total hack. He's ripped off my material. Do you think he cited me? No. He probably just got emailed from one of his followers like, oh, here, have you seen this interesting information about the Georgia Guidestones, how they're connected to transhumanism? Check it out. He made a YouTube video about it. He didn't even mention me. He's a hack. He's a loser. He's stupid. He's racist, just like so many other people. But he's happy to do it. He is somebody that is perfectly happy to be that guy. Which, if you cannot see this, if you do not have the discernment to see that that's all that guy is, I don't know what to do for you. Your truth radar just isn't there. It's not difficult to see. So he's a scumbag. And he bought into this, and he's happy to do it. He's bought and paid for it. He's making his money off his books. I don't know I have no idea what his income is, but he's living off this. He's made this his career. And in so doing, he has, he'll do what it takes. He'll just put out, and when you get caught up in this web of a bigger narrative that's much bigger than just you and whatever your website, your social media platforms, the little name you give yourself, when you get caught up in the bigger narrative, it's not just you. It's not just you. You're glomming onto everything. You're happy to glom onto it. And you're just rolling with it. It's like, what's the next thing? How are we owning the libs today? What's the culture war issue that I have to cover because everybody else is? Again, very hacky, but who cares? Because they all talk about the same things. And it doesn't even have to be dictated through orders that they do this. Again, it's part of the makeup of the social media framework we're living in, we're existing in here, is that the trending topic, you have to get on board, and you have to get on board instantly so that you get attention, and you have to do it. When you do it instantaneously, so you're not thinking about it, right? And what you're doing, not only so fast, you're doing it in such a way that you know that you're going to be shocking. And what can I do to make this the craziest thing that gets the most attention, that pisses people off the most? So people are purposely crafting abrasive media to piss people off. And really, that's the whole reason for it. That's why they're choosing to make the media, to get attention in the attention economy so that they remain relevant within this. So it becomes this self-fulfilling thing. And the question I ask is, who's in charge in this process? Is it the content creator putting out this material? Or is it the medium? The medium is the message, right? Was that Marshall McLuhan's famous quote? It's more than just the medium being the message. It's the medium crafting the entire operating system of how this thing works. And people who are willing to sign on to that and saying, hey, look, I'm a content creator. This is what I do. And it's mostly unconscious. It's so much of our existence is subconscious. It's not, we think that we're always consciously choosing to do things. those who are honest with themselves and are interested in the truth, realize that the subconscious drives us so much, and so many of our actions that we think we're in control of, we're not. And that absolutely is true when it comes to this technological milieu we're in on social media. It is controlling us. It's controlling our behavior. It is set up in such a way that if you play along with the game, you will be rewarded by, and how are you rewarded? By your follower count going up, by your likes going up, by being signal boosted by other creators in that they're following you, they're reposting you, all of this. Again, dopamine hits when this happens. Ask Mark Zuckerberg for the detailed scientific studies which Facebook Meta has on all this stuff. And they have exploited purposely. They're not the only ones. All social media works this way. So content creators buying into that is a problem. First of all, off the bat, big problem. No questions. Oh yeah, we'll question it by saying, wringing our fist at those Silicon Valley libs. Like it's because they're woke and because they're libtards that there's a problem. And again, what's the problem? What are we mad about? Are we mad about the fact that we've been duped into playing this stupid numbers social media game by a dystopian nightmare situation that we're just buying into and we're not even thinking about? Are we worried about that? No, we're worried about how every mass shooter is all trans now because that's what somebody said. Now we believe really idiotic, like the stupidest things you can barely even, like, if a writer sat there trying to think of what's the dumbest conspiracy concept that I could think of that people would ever believe in. And the writer would come up with some like, oh yeah, what if a conspiracy theory was that every mass shooter was all trans? They would write that and be like, no, that's stupid. That's too dumb that nobody would believe that. I gotta, dial back the dumb rating on this. But it's actually that kind of stuff that gains traction. The dumber, the better. The more abrasive, the better. The angrier it gets everybody, the better. The culture war is a weapon used against us. If you are playing into it, you are fighting a losing battle. Not just that, but you're in... I don't know. It blows my mind to see how many people fall for this. This culture war thing is been weaponized against us, and it is a tool used against us. And it is a major crux of this whole MAGA, alternative, alt-right, whatever this movement became in 2016 and is now. It's now fully on board with this 2024 run with Trump. Like, we got to get them in or the entire country and the world will fall apart at this point. So, let's just, that's sort of the primer that took a while to do, to me talking about the recent allegations of Russian money being paid to... The story this week was a media company called Tenet Media, I believe. It was this company... what state was it? I don't have all the information, but everybody knows this. This is this American company that was receiving funds covertly through several different like little shell companies, like different proxies. It was a proxy for Russian money, this Tenet Media company, and it was giving large sums of money to content creators. Those named were Tim Pool, what's his name? Benny Johnson. That other guy, see, I don't even know these people so well, but those were the three big ones. And then Lauren Southern was also named as somebody who's getting paid by Tenet. Lauren Chen was sort of like the one running the show at Tenet and kind of like getting the Russian money and then paying it out to Pool and all these other right-wing content creators. alt-media, alt-right types. And from what I have read, the sums of money are ridiculous. Tim Pool reportedly getting $100,000 per podcast episode. $100,000 from Tenet Media per episode to put out material. This was $100,000 coming from the Kremlin. Now, his defense, and this looks like the defense across the board with all these people that have been named, Southern and Pool and the rest of them, they're all going with this defense of, well, I was unaware of any of this. I did not know where the money was coming from. I always maintain control, editorial control of my website, of my platform, my media. I was always the editor in charge. Nobody was feeding me direct talking points. They're going with that defense right now. Fine. Okay. Look, I don't know what the case may be for any of these individual people that have been named so far in this ongoing, which is likely to be ongoing, motion by the Department of Justice to figure out the extent of Russian influence over media, but also with the express goal of affecting the election. And definitely pro-Trump, pro-right-wing ideology being signal boosted by Russian money. Now, I know a lot of people are going to not want to believe that this is true. It's the old villain of the Department of Justice and the FBI. Our contrarian mind immediately goes to FBI, DOJ. Okay, anything that they say must be fake because they're the enemies. I have to tell you that for those of you that are just learning about this week, this is not a new thing. There are a lot of little alternative media companies putting out like radio shows and things like this that are basically all they are just proxies for Russian money. They have been the whole time. And I will say that I do know that most of the people who become hosts on these networks, they're none the wiser. They don't know. So this defense that Pool and all them are giving, it is true for most people doing this. So I don't know. I didn't know this is Russian. I'm just, getting paid for what I've always done. I'm not explicitly doing, nobody gives me talking points. Blah, blah, blah. Most people what they are just getting sucked into this with being none the wiser. That's true. It happens with the majority of this. But the fact that this is going on, has been going on, the extent of this is much larger than most of us realize. The DOJ did release a statement this week saying that 2,800 social media influencers are getting Russian money. So we know at least that much. That is, if you believe all this, which I do. So there's a big situation on our hands. And yeah, I don't know what to tell you if you don't believe this, because it is true. It'll be fascinating to see how this all pans out. I don't know what the feds are going to do, if they're going to fully try to prosecute Pool and all these actual individual content creators, or if they're going to let them go with their defense and say I didn't know what I was doing. They told me that the money was coming from somewhere else and I believed it. Personally, I think some of them must have known. There's no way for me to know for sure, and a court would have to, this doesn't matter for the courts. And I hope it does go to court, frankly, because I hope that the truth comes out on this. I really do. And I hope that the Department of Justice doesn't pull back and half-ass this, where they go yeah, okay. And then the story sort of fizzles out. Not much ever comes of it. And like, we don't learn of anybody else that's involved in this because there's a lot of people involved in this, and it just kind of peters out. That would play right into the stupid narrative that Ramaswamy and all these other MAGA goofballs are saying, like, this is the same thing they do every election cycle. They just say there's Russian interference and there's nothing to it. There never has been. There isn't now. It's what they do because they have to cheat to win. The 2020 election was stolen from Donald Trump. It's all BS. That's all a bunch of BS. And if you believe that stuff, I don't know what to tell you. I do not know what to tell you. But if the DOJ drops the ball and nothing comes of this, they'll play right into that, which my conspiracy mind would go, well, what, does the DOJ just want to give Trump this boost here and be like, give more evidence to his followers that he's being persecuted? It's a witch hunt. There's nothing to the allegations. Are they purposely doing that? I hope that doesn't happen. I hope that there's consequences for this. There should be. There should be consequences for this. This is serious stuff. Russia is... Where do I begin on Russia? If you think it's just some sort of coincidence that during this whole time, 2016 till now, that the alt media and everybody in that, again, media ecosystem we've been talking about the whole time, just happened to cozy up with Putin. Oh, he's this great guy. Make him out to be wonderful. He's on our side with the culture war, always playing clips of him talking about how the West is declining because of they're going away from family values, all that culture war BS. Like, look, Putin knows. He knows the truth. He's sticking it to the libs too. We love him. If you haven't been questioning that, big problem, first of all. The culture war is a weapon in this propaganda war, which is being funded in large part by Russia, has been this whole time. Trump has financial dealings with Russia. And this whole information war thing, there's just so much to it that I don't think I'm going to even get into all the details of how this Russian influence operation works. But I'll just say, if you don't believe it, I don't know what to tell you. This is legitimate. It'll be interesting to see what the people who have been named in this as beneficiaries of this money will do, what their defense will be, what will become of them, if they'll come out and start speaking out against what they've done in the past. Is the war in Ukraine the first transhumanist war? That's what's up, man? It's good to see you. Let me switch over to the quotes or to the chat so people can see this. You're over there at YouTube. We're just talking about the Russian money story, about how I'm making the point that yes, the Russians have influenced the alternative media. This is not a new thing. A lot of people are going to try to play up like this is just all fake news, right? It is not. It's a very legitimate thing. It's far more widespread than what even has been alleged so far. So what would be nice to see actual repercussions come of this, where if anybody who is guilty in this whole scheme has to honestly pay the price, because they should. We're talking about treason. And so I was just, I don't know. I was all excited to talk about the Russian thing specifically, but I think what I'll just do is, because I'm starting to get tired, honestly, and I'll probably talk about this more on the Age of Transition show next Friday, and we'll just leave this more or less here for now. But yeah, this thing is legitimate. This thing is legitimate. It's real. Yeah, I feel my mind starting to slip, honestly. So I am going to end the stream here. But this is a developing story, and I'm going to be watching it closely. And I suggest you do the same, and we'll see what happens with everything. Thank you. This is the Age of Transitions. Again, we're usually live on Friday nights on Ochelli.com. It's being fought with robots now. Yeah, I know that's an interesting point in and of itself. The robots and robotic warfare. And that's a whole nother thing that, again, important topics like that get distracted because we're forced to talk about whether Donald Trump is good or bad, which is a huge problem. And I would say that's probably a huge point of what the Russians have wanted to do, is get us to focus on all this dumb stuff and get us to destroy ourselves, divide ourselves. These idiots who have been implicated in this whole thing are the same ones who go around promoting the concept of a new American Civil War. I know Poole has done it over and over again. That's just, there is no excuse for that. That is just beyond problematic. Biden is pro-Ukraine. Yes. So the old guard U.S. establishment, which now just goes under the guise of the liberals, is definitely on the pro-Ukraine, anti-Russia side of this. But I'm not going to get into the war. I'm not. I wish I could keep going, but I've got important business to tend to now. Just when the chat is getting going. But does BlackRock own Ukraine? These are all funny questions. But anyway, it's a mess. It's a mess. And pro robot warfare. Yeah. It's wonderful. Anyway, the Age of Transitions, usually live on Ochelli Radio Network, Ochelli.com, Friday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. TheAgeOfTransitions.com is the website. Thank you if you listen to this live stream. We'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.